Hi, my name is John Byrne. I'm the author of Bones in the Wash, Politics is Tough, Family is Tougher, and I'm going to be interviewing Doug Greene, the author of From Grief to Grace. Made that mistake again. So, Doug, tell me about your book.
So thanks, John. It's nice to do this interview with you. This is the book. It's called From Grief to Grace. It is the first book in probably what's a trilogy. But what inspired me to write the book is, and it's about dealing with depression and getting through it, and how a bucket list basically saved my life, believe it or not. About 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I learned I was going blind from glaucoma. And it's a disease that basically attacks the optical nerve of your eye. It's sort of like shorting out wires. Your eyeball builds too much pressure. And the net result is that you lose whole areas of vision. And I'd lost 90% of the vision in my right eye and half in my left. So it's like I see about this much out of my left eye and I see about this much out of my right. And that's all that's left. And I didn't know if I was going to go completely blind. And I really, as having been a photographer, an outdoor adventurer and writer and appreciator of the natural world, I went down the rabbit hole really bad and finally reached the point where I was not knowing if I was going to go completely blind. And you kind of go through go deeper and deeper and deeper into the abyss. And finally, I reached the point where I was ready to just check out. It's like, if this is what my life is going to be like, I don't want to be around anymore. And I finally reached that point, and then that's when this voice inside my head said, do your bucket list. And there were 3 items on it, but kind of the deal about the bucket list is, I mean, there's still, even when you're in a depression, you can still have, at least in my experience, you can still have logic going on. And the logic was, well, if I check out now, I can't do my bucket list. But if I do my bucket list now, I could always come back and check out. So
Right.
I mean, it really is, there's that kind of logic going on. And the first item on the bucket list was to kayak down the Grand Canyon. And to do it as a private trip. I've always been a river runner, kayaker. And there was a 15-year wait list to do a Grand Canyon trip with a private trip. And as a private trip, and
that was too long, right, to wait?
Yeah, I'm not going to wait 15 years to do that. So as luck would have it, 1 week later, a friend of mine, who's one of my buddies that I kayaked with, called up and said, Doug, you know that Grand Canyon permit I put on for 15 years ago? I just got it, and we're putting on in 2 months. Do you want to go? And I'm like, oh my God, there's something bigger going on here than.
Right.
It's bigger than me. So went on the trip, and the book covers the trip. It covers everything getting up to the trip. And then the really crux part of the book, I think, is the trip itself. And there's that saying, wherever you go, there you are. Well, I went down, sure enough, went down the rabbit hole. And the guy that was sort of our leader on the trip, who knew the canyon well, one morning said, Doug, there's a place on River Left down about 3 miles downstream called Redwall. Go there. It's a sacred place. Whatever you need to get through, you can do it there. And when he said that, I felt this something like, oh my God, I've got a destiny with this place. So I got in my kayak and I went down and I found Redwall, huge cavern on River Left. The Grand Canyon is a mile deep. The wall comes vertically down to the river, but at this particular place, the river had cut out an area the size of probably 5 football fields underneath. And I paddled up and got out of my boat, and I knew I was going to be there for a while. And for the next 2 hours, I went through what I basically call the eye of the needle, came out the other side, and that's when my life turned back around and I started coming out of the depression. So that's what the book's about.
So when did the idea of writing the book come about? While you were on this trip? Afterwards?
It was afterwards. as I came through it, it's like, my God, I've got to capture this. I was a photojournalism major I was on a major, and then I worked as a writer, photographer, editor, and photo editor, magazine editor. I'd never written a book, but it's like, well, if I'm going to write a book, here's, this is it.
Right, right. Are there photos in the book?
There are no photos, although we took a lot of pictures, and I'll probably create some sort of site that goes with it.
Put
that can
photos on the website, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you obviously learned a lot from this experience. Did the learning come before you started writing, or did you also learn during the writing process?
So there was a lot, both.
Uh-huh.
Learning's always happening, right?
Right, right.
And there's two parts to the learning. There's learning about how to deal with depression, and there's that piece of it. But there's also learning about the writing component of it too, and that happened just as strong as did the learning of dealing with depression.
Well, was there any pivotal moment along the way? Obviously, during the rafting trip there was, but along the process of writing it, where? Yeah,
there were actually two. One is, a good friend of mine is Marcy Shimoff. She wrote the book from, Chicken Soup for the Woman's Soul, Love for No Reason, and a bunch of others. And she really grilled me one time, and she said, "Why are you writing this book?" And she could sense that I didn't have a focused reason why I was writing it. And she knew that if I didn't have that the book would show it. It would reflect that.
Right. Right.
So she got me in touch with her friend, Kathy Klein, who she co-writes the books with. Carol Klein, excuse me. And I learned, and I took this beta course with her. The course was how to write a transformational bestseller. And that class taught me so much about how to structure books and how to structure the story, meet your audience where they are, not from your transformed state, so you can take them on the journey, all kinds of things, how to structure, each chapter and sections. And so that was one pivotal piece. And then the other was entering a contest, actually. It was, there's a woman named Christine Closer who has this transformational author writing contest. And the book was in kind of a second draft, kind of messy stage, but I kind of had my chapters done. And to enter the contest, you didn't enter your whole book. You just entered representative chapters and then the table of contents. So I called up a friend of mine, and it's like, this book needs to come alive. The chapters are kind of boring. And this friend of mine happens to be one of those people that can just riff through stuff and come up with great headlines. So we kind of were going off of each other. And we renamed all the chapters in about a 3-hour phone call. Wow. And that really was a turning point in the book. It was like, oh my God, as I started reading all these sections, the flow of the book came together, and so did the sort of excitement about it. It was just juicy all of a sudden. So as I rewrote the book from there, it fit into the chapters, and that really helped to come alive. And the net result was that it won the Transformational Author Writing Contest out of hundreds. Thanks. Wow. Out of hundreds of entrants, it was, it was number one.
Wow. How many rewrites would you say you did?
Rewrites? Rewrites, it's still not a completely finished book, but I probably did 8 rewrites before I turned it into Kindle. And then I probably took in some more. The nice thing about Kindle is you can change it on the fly. Right. And I got feedback from people. I thought I'd edited it pretty tight. And and it came right. And then once I got, great. Actually, there's kind of a funny side story in it. So I took all those rewrites and suggestions that people had that read it, and then I finally made a print book out of it. And then my mom buys it. My mom, who's 88, and she reads it, and she says, "Great book, but there's about 6 different errors that you could fix in it." And my mom she's really good with the English language, and
That's good.
Yeah, her edits were good, but it's like, oh
maybe
my gosh.
she can proofread my book.
Yeah.
So what's next for you?
So there were 3 items on the bucket list. The first one was to kayak down the Grand Canyon.
Done.
Done. The second one was to ride a motorcycle solo from Mexico to Canada on dirt roads up the Continental Divide. It's called the Continental Divide Ride. And I wanted to do a personal growth piece along the way. And a friend suggested doing chakras. And it's like, he said, you're going to take too much. You're going to take 7, 8, 9 weeks to go up the spine of the country. And chakras, there's 7. You could do a chakra a week.
They're in your spine, right? They're in our spines, right?
Yeah, it's the spine of the country. And so I did that. I actually did that trip. It was just as amazing in its own way as the Grand Canyon trip was. So the next book is going to be From Grace to Growth, and it's about that trip. And first draft is done. Yes. Now the hard part starts.
Another 10 or 12 to do, right? Yeah. And then you tackle this. You already have a third book in mind, right?
Yeah, I have a third. There's one last bucket list item, which I haven't done yet, and that's to ride a motorcycle basically from as far north in North America as you can go to as far south in South America as you can go. And sometimes it's called the Trans-America Ride, top to bottom, but basically it's from Alaska to Argentina. And that's going to probably be a 6-month to 12-month trip, possibly broken down into 3 sections.
That could take a while.
Yeah, it could take a while, and it's going to take some money. And I'd also like to speak along the way to bring more awareness to both glaucoma and depression, and get people inspired to move through stuff, bring awareness to it. So
it sounds like you got an ambitious plan.
Yeah. Well, 2/3 of it's done, right?
You better get to it. One last thing is, what do you do when you're not writing?
I do videos.
I mean, when you're not writing or writing.
Writing, yeah. So I actually do web marketing videos for people. Something that came out of this is I actually found my new career in this. Interestingly enough, it's visually oriented. One of the things I learned after I wrote the book is that just gets you to the starting line. Then you got to sell the thing, right? Right. And one of the ways to sell a book is to do what are called video book trailers. It's about it's like a movie trailer for your book. Yeah. And being pretty good with photography and software programs and all that, I put together a video for it, and people liked it so much. Other authors liked it so much, they hired me to do video book trailers for them, and then that's led into doing web marketing videos, online training, and it's like a whole new career for me. So yeah, that's what I do. So you can see that at douggreenevideo.com.
At Greene, Greene.
Right.
Yes. Any last words before we wrap it up?
Well, if you're thinking about writing a book, I really do it. I mean, the timing is great. The tools are here now. You can get it out. You can market it yourself. You don't have to go through the big publishers to do all that stuff. And they're probably not going to look at you anyway unless you bring in a good marketing tribe. So learn marketing as well as writing. And
if you want to read a book, what book might you want to read?
Well, the best one out there I know of, From Grief to Grace. Don't miss it. It's really good.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Doug Greene.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.